Hi there, this is Laura with Mom Envy, and this is how you make a really easy Valentine's Day themed wood bead garland. First, you're going to need wood beads. You can get these at any craft store, and sometimes if you're lucky, you can even get them at Dollar Tree. Then you're going to need these cute little heart tags that I got from Dollar Tree. I have seen versions of these in craft stores as well, but pretty much you just need a part that has a hole at the top. You're going to need some sort of natural string like this jute, and then you're going to need whatever color paint you'd like to use. Now I have a trick for painting the beads because they do wobble quite a bit. So my trick for painting beads without them rolling all over the place is you're going to have your wood beads, and then you can just take, if you can find some sort of plastic bin that has openings like this one here from IKEA, it works perfectly. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take a kebab stick and you're just going to take it through. You're going to take it through one side and you're going to string the beads through. Okay, once you get them through, you're going to go ahead and put it through the other side. Now, to get this not to move so much is I'm just going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to tape this down on this side. And then I'm going to tape it down on the other side. Now I have enough beads that I'm going to do this twice so that I have two different strands, and that way it gives me space to separate them. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to string it through, and then I'm going to take some tape and I'm going to tape it down. Now you can make your garland as long as you'd like. That's the nice thing about doing it yourself, is you get to choose how long your garland is going to be. So if you're going to be using it in a tiered tray versus on an ottoman, you can make it a length that works for you. And so for me, I don't want mine to be super long. So this is all I'm worried about doing. And so I'm just going to take this and now I'm going to add some paint. Now, I like to use a paper plate to put my paint on because I just think that it's easier. So for mine, I've chosen to do white, red, and pink. Now I'm gonna just do a little bit. I have two different pinks and I'm gonna kind of see which one I think I like the looks of better. And I think I'm gonna just do 3 colors, but we'll see. Okay, so now that I have these on here, I'm going to decide that I'm going to go with the lighter of the 2 pinks. I'm going to do the light pink, the red, and the white, which is very classic for Valentine's Day. So now that I've got my paint decided, I'm going to divide up my beads evenly and just go ahead and paint them. I have 12 beads and 3 colors, which means I'm just going to do 4 of each. And for the purposes, of course, of this, I'm not going to make you watch me paint them all, but I'm going to show you painting one. I like to start with painting with my finger on it, because I find that it's easier. And because I don't care about this stick, I'm not really worried about hitting it. But this lets me kind of try to get as many sides as possible. And then for the end here, I'm just gonna paint and it's gonna wiggle a little bit, so it might take a little bit to get it. I oftentimes will just stick my finger still on it and then just use a baby wipe to clean up my finger at the end. But we just wanna make sure we get all the sides. Okay, so it looks like this one is finished, and I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest. And again, I'm not gonna make you watch, so I'm going to use the magic of video editing and really quickly just speed this up. Now this next step is we're gonna paint this white. Now, these are actually chalkboard tags, which means this side is chalkboard and can be written on. So what I'm actually going to do is, because I like that I could use this lots of different ways, is I'm not going to paint the chalkboard side. I'm going to paint this other side white, and then I'm going to leave this side as it is. And when I decorate with it, I can have the choice of either having it with the white side or whatever color you choose, white, pink, red, or a different color. Or if I'd rather, I can actually just keep it on the chalkboard side and write something on it. So I'm just going to paint this white really quick. Now, if it needs more than one coat, then you're just gonna have to come back and let this dry and paint it again. but I'm going to use the magic powers of video now and just go ahead and paint this. For this next step, you have a couple of choices. You can either just apply vinyl to this. Again, you can leave the chalkboard side blank and you can just write on it with chalkboard. Or for what I'm going to do is I have created a stencil that I'm going to use with the word love. And so what I'm going to do is, because it's a stencil, is we're actually going to weed out the word love and leave everything else. So just be careful with the inside. So as you can see, I kind of lost my inside of my E, so I'm just going to move it back into place. Once you think you have it back in place, you're just going to make sure you kind of push it down so that it sticks. And then we're going to take our transfer tape. And we still need to use transfer tape, even though it's a stencil, because we need to make sure we get the inside of the E and the O. So we're going to take it over the whole thing. We're going to peel back, and again, just like before, we want to make sure the insides of our letters stay on, and that E I know is going to be the most tricky. And there it is. Okay, so now we're going to place it where we want it on our heart. So you just kind of try to center it the best you can. And then we're going to press down. And we're going to make sure we really rub it on there so that, especially we know that E is going to be tricky. And inside of the O. And we're going to peel off the transfer tape. And I'm actually going to go ahead and stick it to my paper down here, which will help hold it. So when I paint, I like to do the coat of whatever color is my base color first, because it kind of seals it in. And I'm just going to do a very light coat. And that's going to seal in all of my edges, and it makes it for a much smoother line. Okay, now that the white coat has dried, I'm going to go ahead and do a coat of the pink. You can do any color you'd like, but I've decided I'm going to go with the pink one. And I'm going to just brush lightly. I'm going to make sure that I'm not going too aggressively because I don't want to have it seep through. Okay, so now that we've done that, that should be more than enough paint for what we're doing. So I'm actually going to go ahead and remove the transfer tape now because I find that it just gives some cleaner lines. Okay, so this is the area that I have that it took off a little bit of paint when I took off the stencil. So I'm just going to go in and very lightly touch it up. So now we're going to let this dry. So I'm going to move it back here. And while that dries, I'm going to actually go ahead and start to string my beads. Okay, so now we're going to take our jute and we are going to make our very first end of it, which is actually going to be a loop, so that if we want to hang it onto something, we can. So we're just going to take it and we're going to loop it around, and I'm going to do not a huge loop. We'll do maybe about that. We'll just tie it off. And then we'll do a second knot, which will make sure that it stays. Okay, so this is now where we're gonna start stringing our beads. I can go ahead and cut this off. Okay, so now I know that my beads are gonna be double this length. So if I take this, I know it needs to go at least this long and then this long again, and then I need some room to tie my heart. So I'm just gonna make sure that I have extra just in case, because the last thing we wanna do is get done with this and then not have enough. So I'm gonna take off my beads. Okay, so I like to do the order ahead of time so that way as I'm working, it just is easier for me. And look, a few of these don't come completely the end, but that's okay because they're going to be butted up against each other, so you're really not going to notice that. Because this design has the white and the pink, I want to end on the red. So I'm going to start here with my white bead, and I'm just going to quickly string them all through. Almost forgot my favorite tip when you're doing this. I like to just take a teeny little bit of tape, and when I say teeny, I mean teeny. Just enough so that way when I am putting it through, it doesn't get frayed. And so we're going to wrap it nice and tight. So now that I have tape on it, it should go through way easier. And now sometimes I find with the cheaper wood beads, they aren't drilled all the way through. So if you happen to get stuck on a bead, just take your dowel thing that we were using before, your kebab stick, and then just kind of stick it through. And if you don't have something like that, then just do something else. So this did get stuck. So I'm going to just take this, and I'm going to go like this through. And yep, there was a little chunk of wood that was still in there. And that's pretty common. Okay, so now we've done the first part of stringing our beads, and now we just need to wait till this is completely done drying. It's still a little bit tacky. When that's done drying, we're gonna go ahead and attach it. But I like to have mine stay tight, and so it's up to you how you wanna do it. I don't want mine to be super tight because I want it to be able to bend a little bit. But before I attach this, I wanna put a knot in. So we wanna give it a little bit of wiggle room, just a tiny bit. And so we're gonna come in here now and put in a knot. And again, we want it to be a little loose, but not super loose. So see how that just gives me just a little bit extra there. So just enough that this can move slightly, so it's not, so I can bend it as I want to on a tray, but not so much so that it can't bend at all, or not so loose that it's kind of going everywhere. So once this is dry, I will attach it. Okay, now we're ready for our final step, which is just attaching our love heart. Now again, if you don't want to add the heart, you don't have to. You can actually do a tassel now. Or, again, you can use this chalkboard side. But I'm going to go ahead and we're going to just attach this. And just like this, where we didn't make it super tight, I'm going to do the same thing with this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to trim it at the end here, and we're going to leave just a tiny bit so that way it doesn't come undone. And that's it. We have our final wood bead strings for Valentine's Day that we can use in our decor in all sorts of different ways.